Good evening. Welcome to the October 7th meeting of the Grand Bay Planning Commission. First item on the agenda is roll call. Tim Gilbert, Chair, is present. Sid Bremer, Vice Chair, is absent. Alder Veronica Parker-Stacks.
Present.
Commissioner Lisa Hanson.
Present.
Commissioner Randy Butowski.
Present.
Commissioner Jerry Wispicki.
Present.
And Commissioner Jake Miller.
Present.
Thank you. And
Back up, Commissioner Sid Bremer.
Commissioner Sid Bremer is now
My
present.
apologies.
Next item, approval of the agenda for the October 7th, 2019 meeting of the Grand Bay Plan Commission.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Alder Corpus-Stacks, second by Commissioner Wispicki to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. Next item, approval of the minutes from the September 23rd, 2019 meeting of the Grand Bay Plan Commission.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hanson, a second by Commissioner Wispicki to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Next is regular business, item 1. Consideration with possible action on a request to amend zoning ordinance 16-13 to adjust the boundaries of the NWTC campus PUD and adjusted campus signage plan, submitted by Casey Litzow, Graphic House, on behalf of Northwest Wisconsin Technical College property owner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, this is a request to amend the latest planned unit development on the site. You're probably all familiar with the campus. It's kind of hard to see here. But the black outline is the existing campus boundaries as defined by the existing planned development. The red areas are areas that have been added over time. So, anyway, you're kind of familiar with the area. West Mason on the south, Packerland on the east, residential area, and off to the west and to the north. To the east is a light industrial area of Packerland. This is the zoning map. You can see the dark PUD line around the campus, the existing campus. We have Business Park to the east, general commercial to the south, and then low-density residential to the north and to the west. The comprehensive plan shows the campus as a school, sort of light industrial as you go down Packerland, with some commercial as it gets closer to Mason. So this is, let me I'll go back to the aerial. Or I'll go back to the comp plan, actually. So our 2022 Smart Growth Plan designated the school, obviously, for school uses, which is the blue. Obviously, the current uses of the site and the proposed use of the site all fit within that land use category. However, NWTC campus is expanding, so they had just acquired the 2 properties on the south side of Larson Road as they go out to Packerland. That was the former Tweet Garrett office building. So the land use map kind of designates those lots for light industrial use. As you can see, it goes down, and then where the transportation center is here, and the student housing site is there. Those are kind of a mix between a commercial and that school. What I want to point out is that the comprehensive land use map isn't really property specific. You can see it's kind of overlaps property lines. It's more kind of area. So that overlap does exist here. It isn't meant to be super rigid. We feel the exposed expansion is consistent with the comprehensive plan under the school designation, but staff at this time would favor keeping those properties listed in the current comp plan as they are, in case they're sold off, in case they get a tenant in there that's different from the university. But we'd like to include them in the PUD as part of the campus itself. So the campus was established in the early 1970s. There was a PUD in '96, facilitated the development for options for independent living, which is this tenant on the campus right there. In 2005, a new PUD was put on the site for signage, just to deal with all of the different directional signage and whatnot. In 2013, when the student housing was developed, it was felt that those three plan developments should be consolidated into one. So they did that in 2013 with what we call the main PUD, which is the one that's being amended here. 2015, there was a referendum, and the technical college received, I don't know how much, but a substantial amount of money to kind of increase their operations and expand programming. With that, they did the transportation center, an energy education center, an expansion to the business school, the universal driving facility, and then they had also recently just acquired those two Tweak Barrett properties on the south side of Larson. Okay, as part of the intent of that purchase was to now kind of redirect traffic away from Country Club Road, which is very residential on the west side, and kind of direct their main entrance coming in off of Larson, which immediately goes into their internal, what we call the inner road. So that was the main purpose for that. Also, at this time when we talked to them, it was found that signage out at this campus had been upgraded over the years, modernized. Obviously, as new buildings went up and new programs took place, different signage was added, replaced, and we just found that the existing zoning ordinance 1613 had basically fallen out of date, and it just needed to be updated. But there was only really two things to update. One was the boundary, which I kind of show on here, and the second was the identity signage, directional signage, informational signage. So I'm just going to kind of show you this map. So this is the campus that was a campus map supplied by the university, and they have different types of signage types. So the big ones are inner roads, outer roads, and the main signage. So the main signage itself are on Packerland. One is being proposed at this location, which isn't there yet, but the other ones are on Mason Street. There is some arrival signage along Country Club, which are in blue. There's a lot of wayfinding on the inner road signage, and a little bit by the transportation center. So to kind of give you an example of what the signage looks like out there right now, is the main campus identity sign is the one that's up in the upper left. So you'll see that on like the corner of Mason and Country Club. Sort of the outer road signage are much smaller. So these are ones you'll see on Country Club, and you can see they're very short, about 6 feet tall. I think and they're very small in area, 55 square feet. There's a little bit taller one that's on Packerland. The inner road signage is really that directional and wayfinder signage. You can see that on the left. And then there's parking, directional, and general information signage, and then wall signage, which is really kind of two types right now. There's the individual lettering on the buildings themselves, and then there's sort of larger ones by some of the entrances. So this is the general signage package that's out there right now. What they're looking to do on the corner of Larson and Packerland, which is designated kind of where that star is, and you can see it's set back about 50 feet, a little more than 50 feet from Larson, and almost 50 from Packerland. But it's a much larger sign, so it's still not very tall. You can see with the people here, they're not real tall, but the sign itself is about 230 square feet, and it has a digital display. So this would be sort of the new sign coming out there. You can see this one kind of becoming their main entrance, and sort of their main gateway is much more drastic than the one that's currently out there on Country Club or on Mason. And that is the intent of the university, to kind of make this the main gateway. So that's part of the plan development update. So staff does believe that the property additions make sense. They're going to the east primarily, towards the business area, rather than going north or west to encroach more into the residential. All the different wayfinding and update signage makes a lot of sense to us. We're mainly concerned with the outer road signage, so the signage that's on, that you'd see on Mason, on Country Club, and then in Packerland. And if you look in the plan development, it does reflect that. So the stuff on Country Club is much, much shorter, and much less area, 55 square feet, 6 feet high. Packerland, the main entrance is the biggest, And then there's some other ones that are kind of on Mason that are a little bit bigger, but still pretty subdued. So we feel those signs are appropriate. The campus is about 206 acres, very large site. Our zoning code was really not designed to deal with wayfinding and other signage on that type of property. So we are going to be recommending approval of the boundary change and the new sign package, with one condition, that the approval of the planned unit development amendment. The aldermen for the district, affected property owners within 200 feet have all been notified. We haven't received any comment.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. David, I had some difficulty with the comment that the staff feels the proposed expansion is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan under the school designation, but favors retaining the light industrial designation in the event the properties are leased or sold in the future. Is that a both and, that the PUD will incorporate those new properties, but that the light industry designation will remain? Is that what you're suggesting as the underlying zoning?
Well, it's the underlying land use. So
Underlying
yeah, the
land
zoning would
use,
be
yes.
regulated by a PUD,
Right.
but the land use would stay the same. We are going to be entering a update to our comprehensive plan. And so rather than kind of do them piecemeal right now, the thought is we would take that as a whole community discussion at that
Okay.
point with the other owners on Packerland. So at this point, we just kind of wanted to leave it the same. The uses themselves are permitted in those districts,
Okay.
so they're not a problem with the land use. And again, the zoning falls under the PUD.
Thank
I mean,
you.
we could bring through a comp plan change to change it to school as well, but that school designation might increase even more with the comp plan update.
Yes,
Or
understood.
not. I don't know yet.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Are there any interested parties that would like to speak?
I would like to hear from somebody from NWTC or from...
Move to open the floor.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hanson, second by Commissioner Fiskey, to open the floor for public comment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Good evening, would you like to set the podium?
Please. And if you could give your name and address for the record.
Sure.
And Dave, could you shift that over to the thing that shows, the sign that shows where the signs are?
Chet Lamers, representing facilities management at NWTC and Erica Plaza in our marketing and recruitment area. You want our home addresses? Or we're both agents of the Tech College. So we want to just thank you for your careful consideration to this request. A couple of highlights that I think just any community member we'd be happy to have them know is Erica's team recently went through a rebranding strategy, and that's what really is driving the signage component of our request tonight. For many times, we would take as staff questions from community members saying, how are things at Northwest? And we're like, we're Northeast. So our branding package really tries to reinforce that. That's what you're seeing. As staff has discussed, we were very fortunate to have a voter-approved referendum in 2015 that allowed us to expand our offerings throughout our entire district. However, NWTC Green Bay's main campus certainly was the majority share of that. So through the acquisition of a couple of properties, we are now able to have signage on a signal light intersection, and that's really important. Something that Eric and I chat about what corner is the most important, honestly was driven by these things that almost everybody carries in their pocket. If you were to ask Siri to map you to our campus, this is the intersection it's going to take you now.
Really?
If you're coming from the west or if you're coming from the north. And so trying to leverage that and our neighbor, the Botanical Gardens, which is on our property, this has become a large traffic generating entrance to the college. And one that we prefer to have because of it's less residential and more commercial industrial. So that's really why we're here. the PUD and the semantics that surround that, we always want the city to be comfortable with what we're doing, and so certainly we'll be cooperative as future comp plan and maps have changed or need to change. Certainly, it's not in our interest to try to have a use that's incompatible with the neighboring surroundings, so. And with that, if there's any questions that you have for us, we'd be glad to help.
I have one difficulty, and that is, I was totally surprised when I read the main entrance on Larson. I've always thought of the main entrance on Mason, and your letterhead has a Mason Street address. Now, that really confuses me because I would not go up Packerland looking for the main entrance to the campus. I would go up Mason. And I suspect many city residents, longtime residents, would as well. So I'm trying to figure out how you accomplish what you want to do of moving the traffic away from the residential area to that Packerland Drive entrance. And it looks to me as if there's a corner that you don't own that really needs a sign, and that's the one right at Mason and Packerland that would get people up to that entrance for those coming from the south. So can you help me with that?
Sure.
What are we doing with the main entrance?
So all very good points. Couple things that are nuances, and Eric and I, although we've worked at the college for 10 years together, we didn't set the course of the college the
Right.
50 years prior to that. Believe it or not, during our last referendum, a main student entrance was maintained and built. And if you're okay with me pointing it out, it truly is right here, main
Right.
entrance and student
With a nice
center.
arrow going down.
So we do have a little bit of a challenge that the entrance that has a nice flagpole and a circle drive, which you can view from Mason Street, gets you to our district office. Not the point we want our students to necessarily arrive, although we're happy to wayfind and guide them once they arrive there in error. It's not the entrance that we necessarily want them to stop at. So that's one thing that helps reinforce with what we're trying to accomplish with this intersection. So that was the first part of your question, and I don't really have a great answer. Our address, we have elected to not acquire and market other addresses. For example, this is 840 Packerland. You really won't see that written anywhere because we're trying to just keep a consistent message in the community. So that was the first one. We are also, and I think this is related, working currently with the Wisconsin DOT, the county, and the city to reestablish the 41 corridor sign that was taken down in the reconstruction. If you want a good coffee conversation, I can tell you what a sign like that costs.
A lot.
And so
I used to head a campus up north, and I remember that.
So I asked, hey, we had one before, and how come we can't get it back? And they said, well, we'd be glad to get one back once you pay for the new signage. So we're actually currently working right now with the DOT to get signage, the large green signs on the Mason Street northbound, southbound exits. We then have to have what they call wayfinding and trailblazing signs all the way kind of the breadcrumbs to our property. And there are currently some signs, essentially rough proximity across from Hardee's on Mason Street. And then we would also like to do the same thing on Highway 29 to signify that entrance, because it's another heavy traffic generating entrance.
So would there be a direction finding sign then at the Mason-Packerland intersection? I'm not sure where Hardee's is along
Yeah,
there.
sure, I can put it up.
Vis-a-vis your
So
campus.
essentially Hardee's is, I think it goes McDonald's,
South.
Hardee's, it's
Yeah.
it's on the frontage road on this, would be the south side of.
Okay.
Here's the second challenge that's kind of interesting. I'm told between a smattering of county and city that this intersection is one of the most dangerous intersections in the
gosh,
city.
yeah.
And so we would love to see some change in that frontage road that kind of dead ends at our campus, but again, not controlling the campus. There's some developer I know that's talking about, could we acquire this property and reroute the road behind? We'd love that and support it. Currently, we're trying not to create yet another traffic barrier or another stimulus at that intersection, knowing that it already is somewhat of a traffic issue.
Even though you want to get people up to Packerland and Larson.
But again, coming in, we'll take our students whatever entrance they find.
Sure, sure.
But coming into to the campus, we're trying to signify more controlled intersection, which is Larson and Chagrin.
The other thing, if I can speak, that it's important to note
Please.
is the turnover is 2 to 4 years with students.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
about 48 years from now, if the campus is pushing, Larson is the entrance, that's where students are gonna think the main entrance is. It's only for old timers like us that we know to go down ways.
Or for visitors to the campus who will come by that flagpole entrance
Right.
rather than students.
Yep.
And it's largely in our messaging then too on our website and how we direct through the traffic that way. And to Chet's point,
Mhm.
most of the students coming in, if it's their first time, are pulling it up on a Google map.
And that would be their directions. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I know that we had talked about, leaving some of the uses on the comprehensive plan. Is your long-term plan to rerun that to industrial, or is your long-term plan more to start taking all the properties that butt up to Packerland and expanding the campus?
Okay, so I'll speak to a little bit about how we're regulated, which can kind of give you probably the insight that you're looking for. Believe it or not, it's very difficult to acquire property, and it's even more difficult to unacquire property. So the college was looking for a place to site our transportation center. We had 2 subject properties in play. One was Tweet Garrett, and the other one is the site that it was actually built on. And due to Tweet Garrett's exit plan taking a little bit longer than we wanted to wait, we had intended on actually backing and releasing our interest in that property. And our board said, if this signal light intersection goes for sale and sells, you'll never have access to it probably in our lifetime. So the college purchased it. We are finishing up the development of our referendum, and then we'll go into master planning for future best use. I would look for that to be a blend of what we're already doing. It wouldn't necessarily be our intent to turn it into, we can't generate revenue, it'll go back on the tax roll, so we know that. There's just some intricacies that pretty much point you to, as long as we hold it in our portfolio, it'll have an academic use. What that may be, it's a high bay with about 14,000 square foot of office, so you could envision something that could stand on its own, with 10, 11 classrooms, and then access to an adjacent high bay. And there's 2 parcels there. One is just somewhat undeveloped, so we would have access to being able to extend parking.
Well, I like the Larson entrance a lot. We go to the Botanical Gardens a lot, so I'm very familiar with that entrance. And also in the 90s, when I was a pizza delivery driver, that is the shortcut to get to that residential area.
Important.
That was a long time ago. So, so I do really like that entrance. I feel like I didn't realize that the Botanical Gardens was on the campus for your school. But we really like that area.
Just a fun fact, last year the Botanical Gardens hosted 180,000 visitors. I think they're number 3 on TripAdvisor.
Well, that new thing, this picture, the aerial picture we have, that's while they were building that new amphitheater and everything, and that is just amazing what they've done out there, so.
Yes.
And a related question too, has to do with the main signs. There are 3 of them along Mason. And since these are all going to be electronic signs with capacity for messaging and so on, I'm a little concerned about overloading the traffic going back and forth with those 3 signs. Can you say a bit about the rationale for having all 3 of them on Mason?
So currently, and they have just been recently updated, none of them have electronic messaging.
Right.
You're correct. I think we asked for the ability
Permission.
to. Those would have to come in one by one. They're very expensive and wouldn't be our intent. The other thing that we did that I think is in alignment with kind of current planning trends is not a single sign set aside from this one is internally illuminated. So we're trying to not create a distraction along Mason Street. And I should say, even this one isn't internally illuminated, set aside the messaging center.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Alder Steuer?
Yes, Alderman Steuer.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at the map here, it seems like NWTC has had their boundaries set for quite some time. So is this the first purchase, per se, of anything outside of, for quite some time? When's the last time the university purchased anything in the area, outside of that area?
Yeah, this really would be
The
kind of
first.
the first expansion off of the main campus. And I should also kind of clear this up. We do not own the student housing, but they have an access easement from our property. So if you look at this as, understand why it's in the PUD, but it's not, we do not own the soil under student housing. We really acquired this property and this property. The other acquisitions have been throughout our district, and those were purchasing leased sites. So this is the first time that we've kind of what you would, I guess you'd say, outgrown our footprint. And we really wanted to, which I think is another talking point for a group of planners, is we really want to reserve the collegiate feel of the grass in front of the campus. I was cringing when our Dean of Transportation asked to build our transportation center there. I thought, oh geez, if we do this, this is pretty much going to set the stage for, you know, the next piece of grassland, et cetera. So, I mean, we could have fit most of what we acquired on the front lawn, but that would have been, that's it.
Well, I realize that there's other businesses along Packer Land, and I'm just wondering that over time, if the opportunity would come forward, we might look at more purchasing.
I think, so that's a tricky one. We'd love to be included in someone's endowment.
I think we all would.
But all joking aside, I think we would have to go through yet another referendum based on the value of those properties. Our current cap is about $1.5 million every 2 years. So if any of those came up, they were a good buy, everything fell in alignment, no contamination or past uses, I think absolutely they're on our radar. Can we operate for another decade or 2 or 3 without them? Probably. And right now, we want to play the good neighbor card. And I think we've been trying to do that. This property was a sub-property of this at one time that was severed off. And so those, we're pretty close neighbors with that parcel.
That's
A
good.
great question.
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further? Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to close the floor?
Second.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this? Okay, thank you.
Motion, second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Bremer, a second by Commissioner Hanson to close the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are back.
I move to approve the proposal.
Second. We have a motion by Commissioner Petrowski, a second by Commissioner Waschinsky to approve the recommendation. Any further discussion among commissioners? Hearing none, the chair would ask that you cast your vote.
Unanimously approved.
Thank you. And this will go before City Council on next Tuesday, which would be October 15th. Thank you. Thank you.
And it would go to one more after that, too.
Next item, item 2. Consideration with possible action on a request to rezone property located at 154 Burger Street, submitted by David Charles, Van Zanden Real Estate, on behalf of SRL2 Incorporated.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 154 Burger Street is on the corner of Mills and Burger. It's outlined in red. The reason for the request is basically to make the zoning match the existing land use on the site. So the parcel itself is zoned R1, low-density residential, and you can see so are the properties to the south and a little bit to the east. This color, I don't know what you want to call it, tan color is very density. So this is a multifamily zoning. There are apartments over here. There's a variety of multifamily to the north. Borneman's, it shows as a light industrial, but there's a planned development over the top of it. City garage is over there in the green. So this is the general zoning map. You can see that this parcel, and actually the one across the street, across Burger as well, at 153 or 155, are both zoned low-density residential. However, they're both developed with apartment buildings. The comprehensive future land use plan shows those two parcels along with generally the rest of the area for medium and high-density housing, which is consistent with the 8-unit buildings that are on there. This is sort of a view of the property from the northwest and the northeast. You can kind of see the back and the front of it. So this is Burger Street, and that's Mills. This is Mills. And you can kind of get an aerial photo of it there. So the property was developed, it's about a third, little over a third of an acre. And it was developed in 1985 with this 2-story, 8-unit brick apartment building, and then the 8-stall garage behind. It also has 8 service parking. The petitioner has indicated they're requesting the zone change really just to bring the property into conformance with zoning law. So I am unaware of any expansions. If you look at the site, there's not really much room to do any expansions. But that being said, the zone change is consistent with our future land use plan. It's consistent with the existing use of the property, which has been there for, 35 years. Alderman Stevens, the neighbors within 200 feet, have been noticed of the meeting. We did receive several calls from neighbors, really just wondering what was going on, and if they were going to be ripping it down and rebuilding or whatever. But we didn't receive any objections. So staff is recommending basically to approve the cleanup rezone on this corner. I would like to also point out that the petitioner did contact the neighbor across the street to see if they would be willing to join in the rezone, since they are also an 8-unit, and they were not interested. So we're not pushing it on our end.
Answers that question. Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, sorry. So this would be a rezoning from R1 to R2?
R3.
R3, okay. Good, I wasn't finding that on my sheet. Thank you.
Yep.
Is there anyone else to speak?
Is there anybody here wishing to speak on this?
I don't have to speak, so it's up to you guys. I represent the owner, so.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Move to approve?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Hanson, a second by Commissioner Waspisky to approve the recommendation. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Chair would ask that you cast your vote.
Unanimously approved.
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Next item, item 3, consideration with possible action on a request to vacate an unimproved right-of-way located near Hillcrest Drive, submitted by Jamie Sprudels.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, staff and the petitioner have been in conversations. There are issues with vacating this right-of-way, and it is definitely not ready to go. So we would just respectfully request a postponement.
So moved.
Hopefully bring it back at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think appropriate would be to hold till the next.
Motion to postpone. Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Brimmer, a second by Commissioner Waspisky to hold until
The next regular meeting.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, again, the chair would ask that you cast your vote. Okay, then-
I'm not being,
Yes, is to hold it.
Yes.
Unanimously approved to hold.
Thank you. Next item, item 4. Consideration with possible action on an appointment to the Downtown Business Improvement District Board as nominated by the bid and approved by Mayor Eric Enrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as you've all been on here a long time, you know you're intimately involved with the bids, and kind of give you that better connection with their operating plans and everything. Their appointments come through the Plan Commission for review. So per those procedures, the Economic Development staff looked at the applications for the Downtown Green Bay Inc. bid. And the nominee for Jim Dubois, who's the owner of Dubois Formal Wear, was felt to be a very attractive member for the bid board. And so the mayor had reviewed that nomination, and he had submitted that appointment for confirmation by the Plan Commission before it would go to council for final approval. That is basically it. We are recommending approval of the request to appoint Jim Dubois to the downtown bid board.
Thank you.
I move to approve the
Second.
recommendation.
We have a motion by Commissioner Petrowski, a second by Commissioner Hanson to approve the recommendation. Any further discussion?
I just want to note that I'm really jealous of his 7-minute walk across the
I
bridge
know,
from
right?
home to work. It sounds so
Convenient.
lovely, and it's a real compliment, I think, to downtown development that that's available to him.
So noted. Okay, the chair would ask that you cast your vote.
Unanimously approved.
Thank you. Next item, director's report.
All right, at our council meeting last week, public hearing, second reading for adoption, 2 zoning ordinances, I guess 2 projects. One was the comp plan change in zoning ordinance for 2607 Nicolay Drive. That was approved, went from general commercial, low density residential to Carlton. Yeah,
Oh,
property,
Carlton.
yep. And then same thing, change in the comp plan and rezoning for various properties in the shipyard investment neighborhood. So we talked about that over the summer, just, kind of comprehensive strategy, putting properties more in line with where we'd like to go in terms of redevelopment in that area. There's also a parking ordinance, which wasn't related to this, but it reminded me because I wasn't here last time, that our parking ordinance changes did go through in terms of our minimum parking requirements. I think that's a really great step forward. And one, just cleaning up a lot of things that needed to be done from a development perspective, really putting us on a progressive strategy, to look at doing redevelopment the right way, and really making sure that we're developing smartly and working kind of with market forces, but also developing in a way that's really, dense, and in a way that really reduces cost in terms of the burden of providing, parking and fits in, to what we'd like to see in our community. So I just think that goes without noting. Wanted to appreciate Dave for all the work he did slogging through that whole code.
You'll probably see it again in 6 months when we
Yes.
do a review.
But I think it's a good thing, when we talked about, to go through in 6 months, kind of that checkpoint, right? And in terms of people asking for relief or changes to help keep on top of that. So that's good. And then just from a staff perspective, we're gearing up, kind of looking at reviewing what we did for this year, putting together budget numbers for next year. Don't anticipate any really major changes, with the exception of really starting to put a focus on our comprehensive plan update. Starting to track, and then we'll probably have some working meetings here, and then really starting to lay the groundwork of how we do that major comprehensive plan update. Other than that, things are good.
Thank you.
A question
Sure,
that is of
yeah.
a general nature, I was reminded by Alder Stoyer.
Yes.
What is the city doing, or does the city have a part in doing anything about the shape of the dike along the bay, which has really been torn out by the storms this
Yes, I'll have to defer to Public Works. I know either this year or next year they had planned doing a full inspection of
And they have done a partial
all of it.
inspection.
Okay.
But not since the storms. And
Of
the
this
storms
spring?
have really damaged it pretty severely.
I will make sure to refer. That's generally Public Works that's been working on maintaining that, but just to review and make sure that we're all up to date on that. We've been trying to get our arms around some of these flooding issues, both from an engineering perspective, but also from a planning and long-term land use perspective. It's going to be part of the comp plan and talking about some of these areas that are prone to flooding, what that long-term land use
Yep.
strategy is. So that'll be definitely part of the comp plan that we're talking about. Definitely feel that having that environmental perspective is one of the things that's going to be included, talking about water.
Thank you.
Sure.
And
Yes.
Alderson.
Kevin, I was going to ask quickly, has there been any talk in the office about doing, looking at the ability to do an intensive building survey again? What is the,
Yes.
for the city?
So now that we are a certified local government, we will look at planning, the state has funds available to do an intensive resource survey. Our last one was done, when, the 80s?
88.
And basically, it's trying to identify and document pretty well the historical properties that we have in our community. So I think we've touched on it as we went through and created the historic district downtown. I think for us, we'll look at funding and then how far that can take us. I think the priority is to look at maybe some properties that are not in designated historic districts to make sure to see if there's some properties that maybe should be specifically added, but then come up with a work plan about how to kind of update and expand that survey throughout the city. But we should be eligible now that we're CLG to get some funds from the state to help us with that. We may look at leveraging some funds here, but I think that's an important part of updating some knowledge about what we have.
I know that you're somewhat limited as far as some of the funds that you can get from the state, so it would be above and beyond in order to do a good survey. I think one of the things I worry about are some potential historic districts that the longer you wait, the worse it is for that. And some of these buildings alter their appearance or material-wise, and then they're not eligible to be part. So I'm just saying I think it's something that is important that we should look at moving forward.
Yes, I think the first step was to reach out to some consultants and get kind of a feel in terms of pricing and cost and like, all right, is it like per house or per acre or per neighborhood cost, and then get our arms around what that might cover in terms of annual or 1 year or multi-year project.
Could something happen where you'd have volunteers or neighborhood associations get involved in something like that, where they could help with the research possibly? Or is that a consultant type of thing?
Probably based on the consultant. I think, you probably want to balance things done professionally versus what volunteers are doing. I think volunteers would be great in terms of maybe being able to take pictures or provide some ideas. I think you'd probably want to rely on the consultant for maybe some actual documentation of knowing what the specific architectural feature is or element that's contributing.
That's good, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.
Yes.
I've got a question. Certainly, the rest of us that live on the bay do have our issues and problems also. Is the city going to be involved on the East Shore where we're losing property and having extensive damage? We already have the DNR involved. We also have some people who are more than willing to try to fix it, and which would actually consist of probably damaging a lot of our properties, even getting access to the shore. Has anything come up on that? Is there anything in the making on that, or have you heard anything from the DNR?
Not particular. In terms of whether the dike should be expanded out that way, or what? I mean,
Something.
Specifically? Sure.
Something.
Yeah.
We're losing property. I suggested that we all go back to the city and have our taxes reduced because we're losing property.
Okay. Putting my EDA ad, probably wouldn't argue for that one.
And how would we pursue that? Should we pursue that probably through a neighborhood association?
It would be good to, kind of come through with the neighborhood association and look, I think, as we talk about our comp plan and changing, I think the environment is a big part of it, and water, how it impacts our properties from both flooding, the record high water levels we have right now. I think we need to plan out, look, water will probably go down, but it's probably going to come back up again, and then just making sure that, we have some knowledge about particular policies to make sure we're using it right. That may spin off into some maybe specific projects that might be more public works driven, but I think it would be important to kind of bring those conversations up.
Public works should definitely be included because we also are blessed with the main sewer line running down that east shore on the same beach that's being taken away.
Sure.
And we have some concerns about the main sewer line being exposed and damage done to that, which could really be a mess.
Yeah, literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be quite a waste, really.
No pun intended.
To
I think it
adjourn.
wasn't.
Yeah,
Touche.
Okay, thank you. Date of the next meeting is Monday, October 21st, 2019. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I declare this meeting adjourned.
Yeah, your water table is just incredible.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
a block away from my house, people who don't have waterfront property are, now have waterfront property, and it's in the middle of the
Don't tell the
city.
citizens, though, he's a customer.
Right, exactly. I would like to say that I'm wildly
I have a
excited
small
about the
pool in
newest
my
renderings
backyard.
I've seen of the
Water.
shipyard.
No
I
water.
was over at the wildlife sanctuary today, everything is
Like, I love, I
Yep.